welcome. For 3 years, pre-pandemic, we met like this once or twice a month.
Yeah.
Facility like this. This is really the first time since the pandemic we've had this kind of meeting. Yes, we had the meeting. We had the Petaluma meeting at the Petaluma Hotel with Chuck Marone. We had the outside meeting with the EKN folks, the downtown hotel. But this is what I remember from pre-pandemic, and it feels good. And part of why it feels good is when we sit home and watch this presentation, any presentation on Zoom, we learn a lot if we're paying attention, not being distracted by the kids. But when you come here and you end up staying around talking with your neighbors, there's a quote that will appear in the slideshow tonight that is exactly what I believe about the casual sidewalk contacts that make such a difference in life. So tonight, when we're done, if your schedule allows, don't leave right away. Hang out, chat with some people, exchange some ideas. It's amazing what happens, how things add up in a way you never expected. Okay, I want to introduce elected and appointed, and I know Janice is here. There. So I got dedicated city council member, and I think that might be it. No other city council members, no planning commissioners. Oh well, they're lost. Before I get any further, restrooms. One thing being back inside now on Zoom, everywhere is restrooms. Sign up here, go through that door, and then down the hall. Topic tonight, 15-minute neighborhoods. You've probably been hearing a lot about it. There have been a number of presentations to city bodies. I've sent through, I believe, at least 2 of them now. But the thing about being in a city meeting is the damn Brown Act. You get 3 minutes to talk. The board is not required to respond to you. It's like being a straitjacket. Tonight, the conversation can be more extended. When we get to Q&A, you can ask longer questions. You're guaranteed to get a response. The conversations afterwards. I think from a community perspective, tonight is when the 15-minute conversation truly begins. I hope you end up agreeing with me. And I won't be able to do it now, but after the presentation, I'll talk about where KBYG wants to go. No, before you go for newbies. KBYG wants to go in terms of continuing to explore the 15-minute neighborhood concept and how we get from where we are to where we want to be, if that ends up being our goal. The 2 speakers tonight are 2 of the people who were actively involved in getting the AIA SDAT, again, newbies, American Institute of Architects, Sustainable Design Assessment Team. Even AIA gets wrong half the time, so it's correct. They were instrumental in getting that grant. They helped organize the event when the AIA folks came to town. They have bird dogged it really since pre-pandemic to today, and they're going to continue doing so. They are going to give you the presentation that's been given to a lot of city bodies, but tonight more of a chance to expand upon it. First up will be, Mary Dooley, one of the principals of MAD Architecture here in town. Probably the project of hers you know best would be the Keller Court Commons project. Following up will be Veronica Olsen, who has really spearheaded the SDAT effort. She's a designer, recently back from spending 4 weeks in Portugal working on hotel projects, right? So catch you later, talk about that. With that, I think I've said all I need to for now. The floor is yours.
That's my typical walking music. Good evening, everyone. Really nice to see some familiar faces in the crowd, and now the last sketch. All right, we're going to do this with words next, but not yet. I got the pleasure of meeting Veronica through this SDAT process, and some other really great people in town who I've known, new people who just have this shared vision, and are really excited to talk about it here tonight. Okay, here we go. If asked, most of us would say that we are in favor of progress, a better tomorrow. But what does progress mean if we don't have a clear sense of where we're headed? The city of Petaluma has made a commitment to rapidly transition toward an equitable, carbon neutral frame of future within 7 years, a future that we are now beginning to imagine. Next. As a city, we need a shared vision of where we're going. A vision of what a prosperous, equitable, resilient, zero carbon, regenerative city looks like. And to get there, we need some big, bold ideas. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of an ad hoc group of 15 Petaluma residents who came together more than 3 years ago out of our shared interest in helping our city align its sights toward that prosperous, carbon neutral future. Next. In December of 2019, we applied to the American Institute of Architects for a Sustainable Design Assessment Team grant to bring to Petaluma a multidisciplinary team of urban design experts to assist us with some big, bold ideas. In January 2020, the AIA selected Petaluma, only one of 8 communities nationwide, to receive a grant worth $180,000 in design services. Although the project was put on hold for 2 years due to COVID, it was revived in 2022. Next. In early August of last year, the AIA team spent 4 days in Petaluma to focus on our selected topic: complete 15-minute neighborhoods and living streets. The AIA team reviewed relevant documents, visited sites around town. Next. Conducted meetings with over 350 community members, drew maps, sketches, and made recommendations that were presented to the City Council on August 8th. Next. Their final report, titled Reimagining Petaluma, was delivered 3 months later in November 2022. This presentation is a short summary of their final report with commentary by members of the local group that brought us the SDAT team to our city. The purpose of this presentation and others of the group will be making over the next few weeks is to ensure that the bold ideas of the AIA's experts are fully integrated into our city's guiding documents. Our general plan, climate action and adaptation plan, active transportation plan, implementing zoning ordinance, and other key documents. Time has come to turn words into action. Next. The SDAT team of design professionals collaborated to develop a suite of integrated solutions, ones that would solve multiple problems simultaneously. Their recommendations address issues of land use, transportation, ecosystem, health, climate, equity, financial stability, and more. We start with their recommendations for 15-minute neighborhoods. Next. What is a 15-minute neighborhood? The AIA final report offers this. Next. The 15-minute city is a concept that describes a residential community with a decentralized mixed-use development node that provides most of the residents' daily needs within a 15-minute walk from all the residents' homes. Next. Within a short walk or bike ride, people of all ages and abilities living in a 15-minute neighborhood have safe and convenient access to a variety of grocery and other retail stores, coffee shops, restaurants, schools, daycare facilities, parks, playing fields, public open spaces, community gardens, civic amenities, and affordable public transportation options. Next. This, after all, is how people lived for all of human history up until a little over 100 years ago, when the automobile arrived on the scene and came to dominate the public realm. Until that time, all previous generations had lived in villages, towns, and cities that allowed older people to move about safely on their own, that allowed children to play in the street, and fostered chance conversations between neighbors. The street was a public living room. Next. As the urbanist and writer Jane Jacobs said, lowly, unpurposeful, and random as they appear, sidewalk contacts are the small change from which a city's wealth of public life must grow. Although Jacobs wrote this in 1961, the concept remains as relevant as ever today. Next. The AIA team started their analysis using a 15-minute walk circle. The radius of the 15-minute walk circle represents the distance that an average person can walk in 15 minutes, about 3/4 of a mile. And here we have a 15-minute walk circle centered over our downtown. Next. After looking at a range of social and environmental data, the AIA team overlaid 15-minute walk circles over a map of the whole city. This map shows 9 overlapping walk circles, each centered on a mixed-use development node. As the AIA team said in their final report, the maps and drawings present with this in this section were created during our 4-day visit and are intended to be conceptual and illustrative rather than prescriptive. The intention was not to create detailed schematics, but rather to spark inspiration and a new way of thinking about these areas. Our local team has been sparked by the inspiration of the report and developed a few more specific recommendations that are informed by our deeper understanding of Petaluma. Next. We enthusiastically support the development of 15-minute walkable mixed-use neighborhoods and believe that the location of the mixed-use neighborhood nodes merits more careful study and community input. Next. Cities throughout history have always grown and changed organically. Because our present zoning codes tend to discourage mixed-use development, they inhibit organic growth and change. Next. We believe it's important to encourage the spontaneous development of mixed-use neighborhoods through revisions to our zoning code that would permit limited commercial uses on parcels currently zoned exclusively residential, with uses and hours as appropriate. Next. This would reintroduce the much-needed element of liveliness, neighborliness, and community into our residential neighborhoods. The first portion is on the 15-minute city. The second portion is on space, transportation, Veronica.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Okay, part 2, transportation or reimagining mobility. The SDAT team titled this section, Reimagining Mobility. At the August 5th community meeting, they heard participants identify 5 key challenges that our roadway systems present here in Petaluma. Next slide. They heard the community voice concerns. Fragmented bike network, limited crosstown connectivity, motorists speeding through neighborhoods, narrow sidewalks, unreliable transit service. The AIA team presented a big, bold design solution that addresses these challenges while also integrating trees and other vegetation into our streetscapes, improving stormwater management, reducing urban heat island effect, furthering our Vision Zero goal of 0 fatalities and serious collisions by 2030, fostering 15-minute neighborhoods and helping us move towards our goal of carbon neutrality by 2030. Next slide. What?
Are we?
Oh.
Are we? Yeah, that was about to ask. Thanks.
The first set of recommended actions in the final report is grouped under the heading Remove Barriers. First among them is fix Washington Street. The report reads, the city and its partners must fix Washington Street to meet its goals related to climate resiliency, carbon neutrality, vehicle miles traveled, connectivity, and safety. The report illustrates the big bold fix as green ribbon of connected corridors, a complete and integrated network that starts by transforming Washington Street and then our other four lane arterials, Eli Boulevard, McDowell Boulevard, etc., into green corridors. In this illustration, a typical 100-foot roadway right-of-way is transformed into 33 feet for vehicles and wide planting areas and multi-use pathways on both sides. Next slide, please.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Just because there was that, oh, never mind. This is right.
Okay. Imagine Washington Street between Petaluma Boulevard and McDowell Boulevard transformed. Take this in for a second. Next slide. The report also calls for transforming gray corridors into healthy, walkable, bikeable, resource-rich, diverse corridors. The transformed arterials would then be connected to our existing network of creekside multi-use trails to create a complete and integrated mobility network, linking all of our schools, parks, playgrounds, playing fields, and commercial districts. Next slide, please.
What's the definition of a gray corridor?
Pardon?
What's the definition of a gray corridor?
Basically no trees, it's cement everywhere, asphalt. So trees, greening, native plantings and curbs and chicanes, etc. Okay, such a system is designed with consideration of the needs, not just of the bicycle riders and pedestrians, but also of drivers of all types of vehicles and users of all types of mobility devices, both self-powered and powered by electricity. Among the other recommendations in the final report, 3 others stand out. Next slide, please. First, the AIA team identified that Petaluma street standards as being out of step with the intentions and with current best practices. Our standards were last updated in 1996. The report says, quote, best practices for street design in the United States have evolved in profound ways since then, especially in arenas of prioritizing safety for active transportation and incorporating landscaping in green infrastructure. Next slide, please. Second, the report recommends improving transit reliability and frequency in order to encourage all residents and visitors to use transit rather than drive. Next slide, please. And third, we create neighborhood traffic calming program. And they quote, in addition to more traditional traffic calming treatments such as curb extensions and speed humps, the city should explore to continue mini traffic circles, raised crosswalks, and one lane pinch points. This illustration shows one clever and very simple solution just with paint. Next slide, please. In summary, based on their wide-ranging experience and input gathered from over 350 community members, the SDAT team left us with 3 broad recommendations. We must reimagine our streets, not as the exclusive realm of the automobile, but as a place for people. Design our streets so that people in and all types of mobility devices can get around town safely and conveniently. This will involve reducing vehicle speeds by the way we design our streets, not by speed limit signs and speed bumps. And we must include trees and vegetation in all of our street designs and reimagine our transit system to align with our vision. Number 2, we must work towards the creation of a walkable 15-minute neighborhood throughout the city. We do this by allowing for organic growth and change by relaxing zoning rules that apply in residential zones. We actively identify locations for mixed-use nodes and work towards their build-out. And finally, We must ensure that these big, bold ideas are fully integrated into our guiding documents. Our general plan, our climate action and an adaptation plan, and active transportation plan, implementing zoning ordinance and street design standards. Next slide. Our future, for all that it might not be or be, is a shared future. We're all in this together, and we need to work together as a community to realize our shared vision. Next slide. Thank you for the opportunity to bring these big ideas into the public discourse. And thanks to the City of Petaluma, to our strategic partners, and to all of the hardworking community members who helped bring the SDAT team to Petaluma, and the recommendations to our public discourse. Next slide. Questions and comments?
And we will get to Q&A, but first I want to add another few comments. More about the process through this organization, KBYG, than about the SDAT, although I may participate in that Q&A also. I'm sure for a lot of you, when you look at this, you go, great idea. Actually, I'll tell you a story about a good friend of mine. Her first comment when she saw this is, I love it. It's not going to work because there's no housing for the low-wage people who are going to work in the coffee shop. And she's absolutely right. Unless 50-minute neighborhoods are not just create a commercial core, it's create all the other things around that commercial core. The housing to support the people who need to live close to. The transit, the streets, just any number of things all have to come together. It is going to be a long, complicated, but doable, I hope, process. What Milford Grove is going to do is to help map out that future by arranging for speakers on each one of the topics. And we're probably more going to add to the list as we go along. But the folks I'm already talking to, nothing's scheduled yet, but I'm trying. Zoning. Clearly, our current zones don't allow most of what you saw there. Somebody was telling me today, Raise is a great thing. So, hey, Raise, if Raise didn't exist, you couldn't build Raise tomorrow because the zoning code doesn't permit it. There's really no place in town you can build a Raise. Those are things we have to start doing. Now, on the topic of zoning, there is a growing movement, and I'm surprised how strong it's become to tone down zoning. And we've become so prescriptive that we are writing what we expect, and the development community is telling us what they can afford to build, and they're different, and we're not leaving the flexibility to find solutions. So there is at least one book out there arguing, let's do away with zoning completely. Not with CEQA, not all the other steps to make sure we do something safe, but let unleash developers to do what they can afford to do as long as it aligns with our long-term vision. I reached out to that author. I had a chance to listen to him a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to get him lined up. Housing. Again, I've already mentioned that, but there's a meme that's become quite popular on Twitter recently, at least for those of us who are geeks and have to follow Twitter on land use, which is that if an attorney can walk 5 minutes to get a cappuccino, but the barista who has to make it, who makes it, has to drive 30 minutes to get from his home to make the cappuccino, that's not a 15-minute neighborhood. And that's very much what our communities are now. That's the reason we're not 15-minute neighborhoods, because the people who mow our lawns are living in Vallejo, and that's just, we need to fix that. I reached out to a couple of housing speakers trying to get them lined up. Retail. To start a race tomorrow in a small neighborhood. What does it take to get that going? How does that guy start generating cash flow, guy or girl? There is a retail expert I've reached out to who had worked with Petaluma. I'm trying to get him lined up this week. It was perhaps the end of July, end of June. Transportation, we talked about bike ped, everything on car, bike ped, transit. Transit is one in particular that we tend not to talk about enough in this community. I chair the transit committee, incredibly complex topic to make transit work effectively. We are looking for the right speaker there. Street design. One thing that isn't in this program, we talked about the big streets, but when we get down to the little local streets, our standard street designs in this town date from the late nineties, right? 98, 96. Okay? There's no reason those can't be updated. Well, cost is the reason, but they should be updated. So, right now, when a project is proposed, the city defaults to their standard street design. Somebody here sitting in the next to the back row recently was the one who pushed to say, hold on that street, we really need bike lane instead. I think you did partially win that battle. Thank you. Okay. But we shouldn't have to be fight those battles. Our standard street design should reflect that. We will try to get somebody to speak on that topic. And then lastly, 15-minute neighborhoods are climate mitigation. They are intended to slow climate change. There are a lot of folks out there who think the battle is already lost. We're not going to avoid the worst impact, which means we really are getting into climate adaptation. There's a professor at Colorado University who is probably the national leader on how 15-minute neighborhoods become climate adaptation approach, especially if civilian order breaks down and lawlessness raises. How do you get a community that works? I'm hopeful we don't get there. I really hope we don't get there. I'm not here for it, but it's worth listening to him. I've gotten to know him at a couple different conferences. He's agreed to speak to us probably sometime late summer, early fall. Now, from a logistic point of view, and I'm going on longer than I should, I apologize. I need to do a better job editing myself in advance. Choosing national speakers, we're going back to Zoom. I hate that. I love looking at your faces. Whether you enjoy looking at mine, your call. If anybody knows a place that has 4 big television sets where we could do Zoom and do this kind of meeting, but with a speaker out of Nashville on Zoom, and it's portable, let me know. I really want to keep meeting face to face. Before I open up questions and answers, one more thing. If you want to continue to be part of this and you're not now on our mailing list, I'm sure you're all on our mailing list, but in case there's somebody here who's not, there's a sign up list in the back. You can sign up there. There's also a QR code. Click on that. It takes you right to the page to sign up. Please stay involved in this conversation. Okay, the floor is now open to Q&A. Please.
What are the next steps? What are the calls to action?
I've been talking to you. Why don't you take that one, Veronica?
Could you repeat the question?
What are the next steps? What are the calls to action? I think, one of the messages that we've been trying to impart in this process going around is that this document, this process is everyone's document and everyone's process. It is kind of like an open source report. So the ideas that have been kind of outlined are part of a process where 350 people gave input. They did interviews with stakeholders from developers to city staff to parts of the community, other organizations. So we got kind of almost like a snapshot of where people wanted to go. So this is kind of it. We had the experts give us the vision that we actually created, and they just put it down on paper. So now it's our job to say, okay, what does that look like? What are the specifics? And one of the things that we were talking about, Mary and I were talking about today, is as a possibility is maybe one of the first steps is to actually create one kind of pilot project and to just have everyone experience what does it look like, making a list of what is a 15-minute neighborhood, what are the elements of that for that particular zone or place. And then, just start duplicating that. And then using organizations like Petaluma, Relief, Blue Zones, all of the other very, very synergistic projects, and have those efforts kind of align, because this is kind of the overarching idea, and then we have all the implementation in those various categories. Does that make sense? So, and then the other call to action would be to be part of this group, to sign up, to come to the meetings, and we're going to get started on educating and spreading the word, and then having maybe a pilot project start. And then there's also the general plan, writing the general plan, attending the general plan meetings, if there's any sort of help people want to get involved. Is that?
Or people who are newer to Petaluma, I'm sorry. Would you like to give a little overview of general plan and the fact that we're in the rewrite right now?
Okay, actually, let me touch on one, add on to one little point Veronica made. Know Before You Grow is about, the urban chat for that matter, is about education and advocacy. It's really important to all of us that you don't just come here to learn about topics like tonight, but you walk out of here going, what can I do to make a difference? And then, and if you're not sure what to do, come back and talk to us. We need more people in the trenches, not just nodding their head, it's a good idea. General plan, I don't know maybe how far to back up on that. I'm on the General Plan Advisory Committee by California state law, actually, as is Mary, I apologize. Well, yeah, there's much of GPAC members in the audience, which is great, that's the way it should be, GPAC General Plan Advisory Committee. By California law, every city has to have a general plan, which is a long-term vision for where their land use is gonna go. Number of elements to it, housing, transportation, et cetera. Petaluma works on a 20-year update schedule. We are now in the middle of doing an update. We are not scheduled to complete until the middle of 2025. Have you read that email yet? Chris just told us we have 2 more years to go on this damn committee. Yeah, I'm absolutely pleased. We need that much time to really get ourselves in front of it. So yes, we need, those of us who are on the committee, great, but we need more people in the audience talking about 30-minute neighborhoods when we start having some of our. Hey, I'm driving the wrong 15 going, never should be 5, now I'm going the wrong way. I apologize. But why everybody's laughing at me? So like Trump, with in front of the UN, everybody laughed at him. What was I saying? Anyway, we need more people. We need more people at the general plan meetings. And we're going to start having some general plan meetings in person. That's what really becomes important for people to show up, engage in conversations like tonight. Being online is always still good, but look for every way possible. But then the general plan is only step 1 in the process. We, as a part of the general plan process, we will be updating the zoning codes. We have 2 of them in this town. And if a general plan says you need 15-minute neighborhoods and the zoning code doesn't allow it, which is actually our current situation. The 2008 general plan does help 15-minute neighborhoods, but it never got to the zoning code. But if the zoning code doesn't get there, we've got nowhere. And once the zoning code's done, unless somebody is then saying, how do we implement the first one? How do we put those seeds someplace where the first one starts taking root? We still haven't accomplished anything. So the general plan is task 1, but it's going to go on for 15, 20 years. It'll be our kids who finally harvest the fruit of our efforts, and that's just fine.
So there's the, besides the general plan, and there's the objective design standards is also a really important process that's coming up now. So any kind of design geeks or people that are interested in understanding how that impacts our land use. I think that's another opportunity, but there's also a I lost my train of thought, but I will continue.
Yeah.
Okay, clearly it's my cogs here, but I want to back up just a second on what we did tonight when we stood up here and read these pages. The idea is that if you're excited about 15-minute neighborhoods, this is a ready to go presentation for your group. So we can talk and ad lib and answer questions, which is what we want to do. But we wanted to show you this presentation that's really succinct, and there's room for more references and resources, which I want to talk about a little bit if somebody asks a question. But just so you know, that is the purpose of this really short 15-minute presentation for a 15-minute neighborhood. So that's the background. Now, questions.
Here.
True, I like it.
What? Yeah. Okay, put it out. Perfect, Sheila?
We'll get back to it, sorry.
I just want to say that I appreciate you said, where people live and, actually, so I live in a neighborhood that has no transit. And from Petaluma Market on up west side, there is no service except for the teenagers. That is unacceptable. And in 2014, a certain candidate, I will not mention the name, said, oh, we're going to get a shuttle. And well, and then another candidate from, I think it was last year, or not candidate, excuse me, but person, said, oh, we're going to get a shuttle. And I thought, well, sounds good. So what I think is, I'm just going to say that I want to be a part of a little group that really works with transit. And I don't mean to think it being on a little committee. I don't want to be on a little committee because I don't want to rubber stamp what I'm told that all these things that are coming up. I want to be a part of a 15-minute neighborhood that committee that understands the importance of transit when you don't own a car. Hello. And if you're trying to take your groceries like a mile up the road and you're 73 years old or 74 or 75, that's not acceptable. And I don't see a whole lot of people waiting in line and saying, oh, sure, can I help you? Because it's not. What I want to do is tell myself, and I want to have all of us take that bus, the bus that we will create and make it go all around. And I'm so sorry to have to say this, but not everyone can ride a bike. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody.
Okay, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say one thing in advance, just on the subject of, the concept of 15-minute neighborhoods, it's access over mobility. That means access along with proximity and safety, and they are both gangbusters in Britain, making 15-minute cities. And the number one thing is bus stop, and everybody has one, but that's what we need.
No, I agree with that. And Sheila, just so you know, if what you're proposing is to create a committee so that Petaluma has a shuttle service, you just create the shortest committee ever. It's part of the budget for the coming year. As of July 1, we're supposed to have a shuttle. Now, I think it's funded awkwardly. I don't think it's going to be nearly as productive as it should be. I'm having lunch with the transit manager on Friday to say, how do we fix? The transit committee had nothing to do with creating that shuttle. It was done elsewhere in the city hierarchy. I'm not going to mention names, but I think it needs a lot of help to be an effective use of the funds that are being made available. But it is happening, so congratulations, I guess.
Hi, my name's Patty.
I don't know, but maybe the batteries are dying on that one. And that's why we have spares.
And I'm a professor of public health at Dominican University. In public health, we talk a lot about making a healthy choice easy choice. So I have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to ask them. The one question I have is in the presentation, you talk about fixing Washington Street. And you talk about Petaluma Boulevard to be down, not Howard to be down. I call Howard to Petaluma Boulevard Crash Road Valley because there's so many car crashes there. I happen to live on that part of Washington Street, and I can see them from the window of my apartment. And it's really unsafe for pedestrians to wait across the street. There are the flashing lights, and that's good. But overall, I know that I'm generally skipper from West Washington. And so I'm just wondering what happened in planning to that section of Washington Street.
Are you talking about from Howard down to? Okay, I don't think that they actually gave the exact street measurements, but we as a group had been talking about the idea that from Howard to Petaluma Boulevard is the most significant place to start because it is adjacent to our downtown. Yes, so that is a very logical first section to actually do and see what people think of it, and we can get trees and slow down traffic to Bodega Bay because, you know, people are going 60 miles an hour on Washington Street. And it is, I mean, I live in Oak Hill and it is harrowing to cross the street. I literally just kind of do my Hail Marys and just cross the street because I don't, because you don't know, there's also, you know, traffic coming out from the neighborhood as well. So that's why that's on the local road safety plan, that's a hot spot as being the worst place for crashes in the city. So yes, I think it's a great idea. There's another group that's working on you know, street, there's Safe Streets Petaluma, and then there's also another initiative called you know, the one piece doing the test case, there's a Fifth Street Boulevard, and then they have a grant to create more bicycle connectivity in the city, and it's called City Thread is what they got a grant from the Safe Streets group. So there's a lot of activity around the idea of creating safe streets and creating greener streets. It's just, you know, that's why I said, if you can sign up, we can plug into all the different activities that are going on, but it's really, you know, it's an organic process, and there are a lot of groups that are talking about the same thing. So we're kind of at this tipping point or this nexus of all this stuff that's happening, and it just started like 2 years ago where it really started heating up. Conversation started, the SDAT, and then people got the grant for the food Petaluma, and then people started talking about neighborhood action. So I think all of it is, we're coming into the swirl right now. So if you want to get involved, it's just get your name down, and then we can try to make in the right direction.
I'll start by saying my really secret, which is I'm a civil engineer, which is not normally the background to be sitting in this position, but it means I see some things differently than other people do. And the longer I've looked at the Howard to Washington section of East Washington, a road diet there, mind you, would be premature. I don't want to go into the details, but we can talk later if you wish. And that bothered me because I agree with you. That's an unsafe section of street. I hate driving it. But in our next to last maybe meeting of KBYG, we talked about a different solution. Europe, beginning next year, requires all new cars to have a speed governor on them. So if you go above the speed limit, your car automatically slows down. It's US technology, and of course, we were too stupid to use it and went to Europe, but they're going to put it in place. But America Walks, in combination with a couple of other nonprofits, national nonprofits, are pushing to have 50 cities put speed governors on all of the city vehicles. John Shribs has currently taken the lead on pushing that through Petaluma. I don't know what his status is, but my vision would be, if we can't get road diets done quickly, let's get to the place where a lot of our vehicles are speed governed, and then take that section of Washington between Howard and section of Washington between Petaluma Boulevard and Howard, and reduce the speed up to 20 miles an hour. At 20 miles an hour, you can cross the street safely. If you get hit by a car, hopefully not, you don't die. I mean, I don't know how much you know that. At 20 miles an hour, you get hit by a car, you have a 5% chance of dying. At 40 miles an hour, 95% chance. Something like that. Yeah, in that range. So all of a sudden, we have a solution from the car side. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it could happen. And this group hopefully will be a part of pushing for that to take the next step. So, yes.
On the subject of things that will be really unpopular, what's your messaging I have 9.99 questions, but this is just one of them. What's your messaging for the raised truck crowds? Like, we think this is a good idea, but like, what are you gonna say to the guy with the brass testicles on the back of his truck? That, to get him to be interested in this, because in this entire process, I watched Pete give this presentation last week, and someone brought up, you know, if we don't get our messaging right, somebody on the council said, we're all gonna, you know, we won't be reelected.
Well, so what was Pete's answer? Help us out here.
Pete didn't comment.
No, I think the answer is, I think we've all come across this. There's a tipping point where about when 8% of the people believe an idea is a good idea and actually get committed to it, it happens. And yes, the guy with the testicles hanging with his rear bumper just gets sucked into it. He may hate it, but if you spend your time trying to convince him that he's wrong, you're wasting your time. It's talk to people who are halfway there, get them over to become passionate advocates, and that's where the battle's won.
Oh. Are you on this topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, sort of the response to that question, I think that the pilot projects or the partial implementation is a really good strategy for some of that messaging, because showing people that it's not so scary, I think is a really great first step, and then trying to build on that, or, you know, taking advantage of like a church parking lot in their neighborhood, or that, you know, underutilized for most of the week, that have maybe pop-up food trucks, or, you know, kids play areas, or very present. You know, something that people can actually use and not have to drive their raised truck to, and then that you know, springs up around in different areas. They can know they can get to community events and locations without having to drive. So, and I think, you know, talking about that, we're not gonna have the general plan for another couple of years. You know, the ISO is not gonna miraculously get revised right away either. But I think we have a chance to do some of these pop-up and little test cases for just meeting for the general plan.
I think that's a great idea. You know, and if a group here wanted to come together and go mark up a street as, you know, reduce speed for a Sunday morning, I think that'd be a great tactical evidence approach. I'm not gonna lead it myself, because I do too much already, but I think it'd be a really fun conversation to have. Allie, I'll talk to you later.
Well, I agree to do that, and you know, remember the pandemic when we had those slow streets and people loved them, and then all of a sudden it was like, bye, they're gone.
Yeah, I know. I actually, this group pushed for a long-term policy and just got nowhere with it. I'm happy to go back and restart that. Mary?
I was thinking about what Ally was saying, and Pete and I had talked about how to implement this 15-minute neighborhood to get people behind it. And, you know, a lot of times when you draw circles on somebody's neighborhood, it's alarming and it's threatening. What are they, why are they doing this in my neighborhood? But to this 15-minute neighborhood is very empowering to create and remake your own neighborhood. And that diagram that showed the radiuses or the circles in town was hypothetical. That those circles could be wherever that circle wants to be, and whatever group comes together. But it really does need to be driven by that neighborhood. Like, we can't go over there. But I think we could encourage and find opportunity sites. There are sites that are just vacant, and you know, something might be missing. A lot of the countries and the cities that are looking at this, they want to have medical services within that area. And I want you to know that there's many cities across the world that are implementing this stuff. Big ones: Paris, Barcelona, Milan, Madrid, Edinburgh, Nottingham, but also Seattle and Portland. This is happening, and it can't be done by imposing. It has to, as Veronica said, it does have to be organic. But we have been thinking about ways to make it happen, and these ideas are critical.
I think the other thing that we didn't mention in the presentation, which was one of my big kind of areas of how this can be successful or ideas is like just the idea of sense of place and placemaking within neighborhoods, within the city, making places that people want to go to. Including, you know, areas that have been, their kind of construct is suburban with shopping centers far away, so they have to get in a car. How do we actually encourage placemaking around the city, including artists, including creatives, including children, including older adults, you know, like really starting to make our community more diverse in activity and in content.
Actually, is Chris Rebel here tonight? There you are. I mean, Chris, this is very much the 880 concept. The argument is if the city works for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old, it works for everybody. Chris has been heading up the Petaluma age friendly effort. She votes 880 regularly. So yet another outline where we want to go.
Thank you, Wayne. The architects chose one of the nodes as being a little gem, which is the one on the very northeast edge of town, the Leghorn Park. And they chose a place on the very southeast end of town, which is essentially in the food desert. It was built as our last true two-car suburbia. And there's right around the high school. The high school has dozens of acres that are extra right now. And it would seem that the first step could be to encourage the high school to put that land available and to design a community like the one on the northeast end, where they put in a shopping center, they put in stores. And what they would probably be most interested in talking to us about would be put housing, especially for beginning teachers, above the stores. And so that people could walk to the school, they would be able to have a store there that could serve 2,000 people. And so that you wouldn't need 2 cars to live in the southeast end of town. You could have just one and you could walk to the market. But it would seem like that would be the first step that we could take that doesn't involve waiting for the general plan and doesn't involve Washington Street, but actually goes to a place where the city, the school district may be able to talk to into backing that as a development. Thank you.
I'm doing a crap job of keeping up with who's got their hands up, so keep waving at me and I'll try to get around everybody.
Share the next thing.
Okay.
Oh, you got somebody else? I'm sorry.
Let's see, this is, yes.
So one of the questions that occurs to me, and I love the pilot idea, I think that's fantastic, especially if we're going to be waiting to see this integrated into the general plan and crossing our fingers that happens. But what support is required from the city to actually implement a pilot program, and how do we take the actions today to make that happen? Because if no support is required from the city, then why don't we just do it everywhere now? I mean, that's, you know, the flip side of the question. So what do we need, and who do we need to engage with to make that happen?
I don't think. Yeah, we know the answer. Including the fact that none of us want to respond to this tells you right there. It becomes interesting to talk about what is a pilot project. I mean, if a pilot project is, let's have a food truck show up at the end of our block on a Sunday, and we go out and mark the streets and people have to drive slowly on it. We encourage everybody to come out with their bikes. That's a fun little pilot project, mini pilot project that we could do as tactical medicine. And maybe not even tell the city we're gonna do it. They might not like it, but that's okay. Jansen is part of the city. If it's, you know, converting a home into a small store, really does require the city to be on board. It's gonna be a variance process. It would be working with planning, working with the city council in terms of maybe reducing the standards for it to happen. It really sort of depends on what the scale of a pilot project could be. And we could be talking about multiple different pilot project scales at one time. So that's a really fuzzy answer, but it's a tough question.
But I think there's people to like do a food truck pop up in their neighborhood in an empty lot. Is there anything stopping people from doing that? I mean, if it's right, I mean, I would get that.
I don't think you have the zoning for that, and that's the problem, you don't have the zoning for food trucks. So if you want to go, park by a park, I don't think it's legal, and so that is.
Yeah, that's my point. I mean, we need to be taking action today, not waiting 2 years from now.
No, and I think my response is, tactical urbanism doesn't always mean legal urbanism. I mean, one of my favorite stories, and I don't mean to get off track on the evening, but what the heck, why stop now? Up in Portland, 10 years ago, there was a vision that if they put murals out on the street in paint, that traffic would slow, and they're right, it does work. It didn't, there's many people that wish, but it does work. They talked to City Hall and said, what would it take for us to get permission to paint a mural in the middle of our street? City Hall said, hey, boy, no idea. We'll take a study, we'll take revised ordinance, come back in 2 years. Neighborhood said, screw that. They organized 200 people, bought all the paint, went out on Sunday morning, blocked off the blocks, began painting the mural. Police department got a call that, hey, this painting was going on without approval. A cop shows up by himself. Gets out of his car. Here are 200 people in the street with paintbrushes, including little kids. Because I'm not touching this one. Sometimes, clearly it wasn't legal. Nobody was harmed. It was a good outcome. If there is if there's a neighborhood that wants to arrange for a food truck to come to their park on a Sunday morning, more power to them. I will be there to enjoy it, take part in it. And if the city wants to Quebec, they're on the wrong side of that history. Okay.
I wanted just to add that, you may not know this, but the city manager is really inspired by this program and this presentation. And she has encouraged our group to talk to every committee, and smaller group and like this, and there's a big group actually, but you know what I mean, it's not a city appointed group. So there is support, and I think if we came to Peggy Flynn with a pilot concept, I think we get the support. So we just have to have a plan and get these great ideas. I'm writing them all down. This is kind of what I'm getting out of today. Is there some energy around this? Okay.
Before the question, if there's anybody here that belongs to a group that wants to hear this presentation, you know who to talk to.
And my neighborhood is doing a little bit of technical traffic calming, some legal, some not so legal. Talk with me if you want inspiration.
Kind of an observation, not so much a question, but Mill Street, which is located in downtown Grass Valley, recently permanently closed it. It's completely pedestrian now. In that instance, I believe they got funding from the American Recovery Act. It was 2.5 million. And it was a very vigorous debate, and it went back and forth, and there were complaints from business owners about parking and various different stakeholders in the community. At the end of the day, though, it's wonderfully worked out. But it might be a place where you guys might look, because they got it done and it's working really well. Yeah.
Janice Header.
Actually want to go back to the hitches with balls hanging off of it. I'm a peeve about these big trucks with tires that are wider than the fenders. So I asked the chief of police, is this legal or not? And he wrote me back and he said, vehicles with wider tires
are lawful as long as the fender covers the tread. And if not, additional fender flares or mud flaps are required to prevent water and debris from being dispersed in the air and on vehicles. And these tires are so wide, they're blocking, a bike path. They're in the bike lane. And when you're riding your bike, you feel very uncomfortable. And this is one thing I'm gonna start working on, and I sent him 2 pictures tonight, and I'm gonna send him pictures all the time. Because our police department really does not look at traffic the way that I think that they should be. They kind of ignore it, and the speeding in this town has really increased. But then you have these trucks that are so tall, when you're walking across, they can't see you. And Eric Leland recently, somebody almost hit him, and she was really horrified at what happened. But they're building trucks that you can't see the person in front. I mean, somebody, my height or higher. And so there are a lot of problems, and we like safety.
Thank you. Is it on? Is it on? Who knows? I'm Colin Thomas. I have a lot of questions. I'm trying to remember. Okay, so I read the SDAT report. And I know it's doable. And so many questions about everything, but do you currently have like a representative from each neighborhood node? Is that a thing? Is there like because like we live in the Payran, sort of McKinley zone, and I'm happy to meet people who are in my neighborhood. There you go. Hello. So anyway, that's not good. The other one is that okay, so I realized that I want to get a better idea of what kind of things you envision for what's gonna make each neighborhood sort of complete in the mid, like, is it just the supermarket? Is it that we have laundromats for people who live in, apartments, or like, what are the sort of collection of things that we are looking to achieve that aren't just, taking people out of it? And I know each node has a different requirement, because all the neighborhoods are different, but, and the other thing that I'm wondering about is, currently it looks like we're looking at these sort of like pinprick. I know it's not prescriptive, but it's like, are we thinking we're going to put everything in one like area, or is it going to sort of organically be like, we've got a neighborhood bar here, and just down the street we've got a cafe, and we've got a little tiny bed of breakfast, and we got this and that. Yes. Because that's what I want. That's what I want. Okay, great.
Well, anything organic. The world's going to change with the climate. We don't know, probably more so than 50 years ago. We don't know what will look like 50 years from now. If we start writing zoning codes to say the grocery store goes here and the laundromat goes there, we're going to get it wrong. So we just need to plow the field, throw some seed, and see what takes root.
And I just want to avoid that like sort of strip mall solution that Los Angeles did so well. It's like from all in one parking lot. I'm handing off to my wife, Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Thomas, and I'm good at public speaking, and my husband. I actually wanted to make a recommendation if you are open to it. So the question I was asking, but my first question about what should we do, and the question that some other people have asked. You gave this lovely presentation about 15-minute cities. Maybe my expectations were a little misaligned. I don't even know what a 15-minute city is. I'm sold on the idea. So I was coming here looking for like next steps. And I think it would really behoove you in your presentation to figure out like, what are the 5 or 10 things that you want people to do, and not like in a kind of abstract way, like in a direct way. Like, do you want us to invite 5 friends to the next meeting? Do you want us to tell 10 people about it? Is that, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm not asking you for these on the spot, but it's maybe something to think about so that you could end your presentation by giving us direction.
I think everything you just said. Bring more to the next meeting.
Nonprofit communications, that's what I do. So to follow you throughout. That's perfect, because I have a lot of extra time.
So, anybody else, because I've got like the 2 pages of specifics on the thing, which actually did, unfortunately, I think that a lot of my detailed questions aren't well suited to a forum like this. I would rather like sit down with a report sometime with a couple of people who are really interested in a deep dive and go into things like just picking something randomly here. We were reading through something about the Lynch Creek Trail and pedestrian connectivity, and we said, gee, for a number of people we know, the Lynch Creek Trail seems like a ambush point with no entrance or with no exits, and they feel really uncomfortable on it. How do we make that not happen? So anyway, I've got 2 pages of that, and I would love to get together and hang out with people and have that conversation more.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, yeah, sorry. For those of you who haven't been on the Zoom meetings, I'm Dan Like, accidental co-founder and host of Zoom meetings and the tech guy, because I am apparently good at tech. Or bad at saying no.
You forgot to mention the man with funky backgrounds.
Yeah, but they're actually like great Charlie Button for me.
This might be also getting to a level of detail, but I'm stuck on the kind of pilot project, and then also what you said about like, how can we get the city involved? And I'm thinking about the new skate park. And I think that's a really good opportunity, because that will draw a lot of people from different age groups and has the potential to support something like small coffee shops or, you know, a beer garden or something like that. To get be in the DC Park, which was also a node on the SDAT. So might be something to think about and thinking about the what the pilots might be, but also getting the city on board. And you know, then there's some economic development that we looped into there. And I think it could just be a really I don't know, a great placemaking opportunity.
You mentioned placemaking in Portland, and there's actually interest in the city. Many groups on taking on. The city engineer approached me a couple of years ago with an interest in having us, daily acts or someone do intersection repairs. We paint the intersection, we do full cop features in that. So it's already been proven at the city scale, but adopted widely in Portland, as you said. And there's interest here in that.
I would love to have that conversation because we propose such things and haven't found a good reception in the city yet. So, hey Gina, not Ken, gotcha.
You had a question here?
Yeah, I think.
Mike's coming your way.
Yeah, sorry, it works. Yeah, so just a couple of things. One, I kind of live in a 15-minute neighborhood now, as far as I can walk to Safeway, but it's not a very inspired walk. And so I see the kind of the connection between 15-minute neighborhoods and the streets as being just integral. And those gray corridors I saw up there, I want to learn everything about that because that is really cool. I live on the east side, and I also think another great idea that you all had was kind of throwing out node kind of connections here. So to get started for where I am, I live near, you know, the intersection of Eli and Washington. If anybody else is up there, I'd love to talk to you just to kind of get that little neighborhood conversation going. And I'd also love to learn everything I can about one-off ways to accelerate, you know, these projects before this 2025 kind of everything comes together on zoning thing. So, you know, if there was a meeting that was specifically about, you know, how you get a one-off up-down vote on something you want to have happen, or how you engage the city to make something happen, I'd really like to get educated about that. So those are just a few things.
It's awesome. You know, one way to get something to happen is to have everybody put in a bunch of money and buy a corner building. Change it. And not everything's free. Hey, just so you know, some of the top list things in a neighborhood, if you wanted to have a complete neighborhood in 15 minutes, a bus stop, a post office, a post box, a pharmacy, a general practitioner, a park, primary school, a convenience store, maybe not 7-Eleven, a nursery, a market, a bank. This is all from, I'm totally stealing this from England, but they are implementing and we're just starting. And another fun fact, last fun fact, there's a proposal for a brand new city in, I can't remember the name of it, Telosa. And they hired a famous international architect to design a 50,000 person city. And it's all walkable, 15-minute. It's like a complete utopia. But you can read about it and see the video if you want to. It's called Telosa, Telosa, creating a more equitable and sustainable future.
Mary, I just have a question. I hope it's okay without the mic. So most of the examples you're giving are of cities, which tend to be much more densely populated than towns. So it seems to me that density has to get pushed almost first before, or at the same time. And I live in Oak Hill, and you know, there's this historic neighborhood thing, so people can't even put a second story on their house. They want to. So that's why I'm just asking, like, what are the nuances of a 15-minute city in a small town where you have restrictions on density, or we haven't changed that yet?
Yeah, I'm not sure there really is a single good answer. Yes, for a 15-minute neighborhood to work, it needs, well, you need a certain number of people who will patronize the store you created. And a store is only one of a number of things you need. I agree with that. But just use the store as the example. Unless they get 300 patrons a day, they can't cover their nut. Do you get there by building more homes in the neighborhood? Do you get there by reducing the parking so more people live there without cars and are, you know, their only option is to walk to the store and save the money they would spend on the car? Is it creating great sidewalks so more people are motivated to walk there? It's a little bit of everything. Probably every neighborhood you look at is going to be different in terms of how you get there. 15-minute neighborhoods are going to take a huge toolkit and wise use of which tools apply in each opportunity. But Oak Hill is a particular challenge because, as you say, the historic neighborhood. It's a question I heard asked at a language conference that 2 weeks ago. When we talk about NIMBYism, and you know, NIMBY, we all know what NIMBYism is. Maybe not. Okay, I'm anyone here not know what NIMBYism is? Okay, I apologize. Yeah, NIMBY is not in my backyard. Somebody who doesn't want new development, and then just to show you that acronyms have a life of their own. A YIMBY is yes in my backyard. A YIGBY is yes in God's backyard, which is let's use the spare land around churches to build housing. You know what a K is? Citizens against virtually everything. Anyway, okay. We're talking historic districts. I got way off track there, but it was fun. There are people who would argue that historic districts are just another form of NIMBYism. That it was created so they didn't have more people living in their neighborhood. How do you work it? I don't want to accuse anybody in Petaluma of having that mindset, but it does create the same kind of problem that NIMBYism does. And I don't know what the answer to it is. The guy I'm trying to get to come talk to us about zoning, I think, could answer that question better than I could.
And I had.
Okay, I hear a voice. Oh, Terry, there you go.
I don't know what to say, but it seems like there's a bunch of people here that are interested, and we ought to break out into the groups and see what we can.
You're saying
See if we could
Yeah.
I love that idea.
Yeah, be clear.
We have the hall till 9:30.
Okay. I see two more questions. Let's answer those. And I like Terry's idea unless I hear an objection. Let's close down Q&A and convert over to neighborhood. Terry, I love you.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to, Dave, as sort of a side, you mentioned the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit, John Strix. Because a lot of people are saying, well, what can we do right now? What can we do right now? My question to you is that something that could be pulled off in the next 12 months or 24 months? Citywide 20 mile per hour?
Okay, let me be very clear on what I said.
Yeah, thank you.
It is a consortium of national nonprofits. America Walks is the one I connect with most. In fact, we've had the executive director of America Walks talk to this group. They are trying to get 50 cities to put ISAs, which is Intelligent Speed Assistant, on all the municipal vehicles. So it wouldn't be citywide, it would just be all the city vehicles that would be driving
City vehicles.
at speed limit. So it would just be a token effort, but it would be a foot in the door. I know it doesn't seem like enough, but it's still a step forward. So one question here.
$1,000 items installed.
That's correct. And if on a new car, it's a lot less expensive, but aftermarket, it's actually $1,200. So yeah, but city can afford it.
Okay, my name's Garth, I live by Oak Hill Park, and I've been there for 35 years. I walk downtown almost every day. I have a building downtown, right at almost Western and Petaluma Boulevard, and it takes less than 15 minutes to get there. So it's really a 15-minute neighborhood. However, I'm getting older, and walking back up the hill isn't easy. So I like to walk slowly. Well, crossing, the intersection of Howard and Washington is horrible. And one of the reasons that it's horrible is the road bends there where it becomes bodega. And people, if they're going out of town, they don't know until the very last minute that the signal is turning red because they can't quite see it. And I have been almost hit a number of times. And if Washington were narrowed like the way Petaluma Boulevard was, so there's only 2 lanes, and you had walking and trees and places to walk and bikes and everything like that, you would, when you're walking across the street, you would have a much smaller distance to actually cross, and it'd be a whole lot safer. I only cross at Kentucky or at Howard. I wouldn't cross anywhere else, even with those lights, safety lights now. But the biggest thing for me is that if it were actually a nice place with Washington, I usually avoid it. I walk all the way. I either walk Prospect all the way down and cross Kentucky, or I walk down Western. But if it were nice and shaded along Washington, it'd be really nice if you could walk slowly and enjoy it. And I think that it's, for most of the people who live like around Oak Hill Brewster area, it's that it's not a fun walk down there most of the times. It's, for us to walk all the time. And so doing the streets is a huge part of it, almost for me, more than having a little store. There is 7-Eleven, I don't go to 7-Eleven. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
No, if I could, well, to begin with, I apologize for not recognizing you. You spoke to this group, what, 4 years ago?
Yeah, at the library.
Yeah, exactly, and I would have done that. I apologize. Real great downtown historic building reconstruction. I think you're talking about the westbound lanes on Washington as it approaches Howard.
Yes.
Right now, it can be done. Well, it converges to 1 lane on the other side of Howard. I can't think of any good reason why that convergence couldn't occur before you get to 7-Eleven. I think that's a really good one-off project. It's a unique situation, but great, let's take advantage of a unique situation.
It worked well on Petaluma Boulevard. For me,
Yeah.
I feel like it's really worked. It hasn't made traffic worse. And trucks can park in the middle when they're delivering the middle between Washington and Western. It's much safer.
There are reasons I think it would not be a good solution on the rest of Washington. Washington going all the way to the Boulevard. But that one little block you're talking about, I think there's no reason to talk to me later. Let's strategize on who to reach out to at City Hall and let's see what we can make happen. Okay?
One more thing about, our whole emphasis on including part of the study to be living streets was because it was originally tossed around that it would be 15-minute neighborhoods, and I said, wait a minute, actually, it's not gonna be, stores for some neighborhoods, it's gonna be street, slowing down traffic. It's gonna be pedestrian, creating environments for pedestrians and bicyclists to drive, being able to have people that are maybe, elderly or older adults that don't want to walk fast, feel safe, and be able to have a bench, for example, on their street. I mean, I was actually looking for a bench the other day. I was like, wait a minute, there are no benches downtown. This is so weird. How come we can't have a bench? I mean, I wanted to just sit and have a cookie. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, well, I'm walking with this cookie. What am I gonna do? So it would be wonderful if we could just start thinking about placemaking for all parts of the city, so people could have a place to rest as well.
Okay, I think we're in this part of the Q&A, and anybody who wants to participate in neighborhood conversation, let's do that. Terry, great idea. You get to carry your group, and you get these two.
Wait a minute, I'd like to just say one more thing before everyone goes. I know you're in the middle of that instruction, but I just don't want anyone to leave before you put your name down or go to the website and sign up and become a member of the newsletter. And also there is the actual printout of our original application presentation that was done on August 8th to City Council, and our final report in that binder there. So that if you want to, you're milling around and you feel like looking at that. There's also a summary of what the SDAT process is. It's 2 pages. It answers all the questions. So, thank you.
Good addition. Thank you.